Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Ambassadors of Gaming channel. I'm Ambassador Michael, and I have some things I wanted to discuss regarding the recent PlayStation Store announcement regarding Vita, PSP, and the PS3, and kind of the fallout from that, and kind of what that looks like going forward. So there's some information from the PlayStation Store itself that was confirmed, I think, roughly a day or two after it kind of leaked. And so the big thing here is discontinued. This is from the support page, so discontinued everything. This is a list of everything that's been discontinued by PlayStation over recent years. So this is specifically regarding the store. So the PlayStation 3 store will be closed on the 2nd of July. This is from the UK, so the dates may vary a little bit, but I assume it's more or less the same. 2nd of July, and the Vita store on the 27th of August. Additionally, the remaining purchases functionality for PlayStation Portable will also retire on the 2nd of July. So what does it mean? It means that you'll still be able to download games you bought. So that's good. The store is closing functionally its ability for you to purchase digital games through PlayStation. You'll no longer be able to boot up the PlayStation Store on these systems, buy games through PlayStation digitally. Not possible. That's more or less what it means. Or pretty much any type of content. Basically, the whole store is, you can't buy anything through the PlayStation Store anymore on these systems. So you'll still be able to download the games that you own and still be able to play titles you purchase. You'll be able to play any media or video, any of that type of stuff, movies, whatever. And you'll still be able to redeem game and PlayStation Plus vouchers. So if you get a PlayStation Plus voucher online, you buy one in a store, whatever, you can still do it through the PlayStation 3, which is a bit weird regarding the voucher for the PlayStation Plus, because at this point, if you buy a PlayStation Plus voucher, it would probably be much easier to do through the app or through the phone browser or through the web on your computer. So you have other abilities. But if you really don't have any other technology and the only ones you have are this, and you're buying PlayStation Plus, you can still do it through these systems. So that's good. The big one here that I'm going to come back to is redeem game vouchers. You'll still be able to re-download and play claim titles through PlayStation Plus as long as you remain a member of PlayStation Plus. Nothing there really changes. It's just clarifying features that you lose access to. You will no longer be able to purchase PS3, Vita, or PSP content, including games and video content. You'll no longer be able to make in-game purchases through games on PS3, Vita, or PSP. So you'll no longer be able to buy DLC or microtransactions, any of that kind of stuff on those systems because the purchase functionality is being removed. You will no longer be able to redeem PS and wallet functions, so gift cards, more or less because you can't buy anything on these systems. So there's no reason for you to add funds to your account through those systems. However, you'll still be able to use your wallet funds if you have any from PS3 left over in your account to buy things on PS4 and PS5. So basically, if you only own these systems and you already have digital currency for the PlayStation Store in your account, you might as well use it before these stores close, because if you don't, functionally you won't be able to use it until you get a new system. And seeing as how getting PS5 is not an option for many people, you'll have to wait until you either grab a PS5 or if you decide to purchase a PS4. So how do you access your games? It's the same as you always have been. I'm only active on these systems. What will happen to my wallets? Like I explained, nothing really. Nothing changes. We recommend that if you plan to top off your wallet prior to closures, you only top up at the minimum amount. We will be updating this page with more details on how to request such a refund. Let's see. If you are only active on these systems and don't plan to lose one, you may use a request for a refund. So at least they're doing that. If you really, really are like, no, I have no other systems, I'm not buying any other systems, they'll at least give you a refund. I'm sure it will be some type of complicated process. Will I still be able to purchase cross-buy content? Yes, you can still buy cross-buy content because technically it's hosted on the PS4, PS5 store. So you'll still be able to access that. Will the closure of the PlayStation Store purchase functionality on PS3, Vita, or PSP have any impact on PlayStation Plus or PlayStation Now? No. Will the closure of the store purchase functionality have any impact on titles I've claimed through PS Plus? No. Will I still be able to redeem vouchers on PS3, Vita, PSP following the closure of the PlayStation Store and purchase functionality? You will still be able to redeem Game and PlayStation Plus vouchers on these systems once the store and purchase functionality close. You will not be able to redeem wallet vouchers, and funds will remain in your account. Will I still be able to download video content? Yes, we already covered that. Okay, so you get the point, right? The point is, more or less, the store going bye-bye, all right? The purchase functionality, being able to purchase digital games, going bye-bye. So what does that really mean? It indicates a couple of different things to me personally. The big one being that Sony does not care at all about backwards compatibility with the PS3. They do not care in the slightest. And that's their preference as a business. Like, they can do that. We've seen that the PS3 is incredibly complicated to deal with. I don't agree that that's the correct take, personally. I think backwards compatibility should be more important, and that each time you upgrade a system, you should be able to bring the things with you forward. That's just my opinion. And it's not something you really see outside of games. Other tech is more built upon itself to be capable of interacting with things that it previously dealt with. Windows is that way, Mac is that way. You can play a lot of games that were released long times ago outside of Steam. A lot of programs that were released even back on XP or on 98. Phones, Android's that way. You can use a lot of applications that were designed for previous versions of Android, even if you're currently running a much higher version of Android. I'm not so familiar with iOS, so I can't speak to that. Obviously, Nintendo has this problem as well. So I guess I could speak on that as well. I don't want to get too much into Nintendo specifically, because the phone, well, I guess I could, because the whole point of the conversation is backwards compatibility, one, important? Does it matter? And does being able to have access to purchase these games matter? I think is the type of questions I want to deal with and what I want to address. So for me, addressing the ability to purchase a game is kind of important, because Sony is very different from the approach Microsoft and Nintendo have taken when it comes to older games that are no longer available on their current systems. More or less, they seem to be much more okay with people doing whatever with them. They don't have the aggressive stance that Nintendo does with the DMCA and emulation, for example. There's tons of PlayStation 1 and 2 emulators. I've never heard of them DMCAing any of those creators or people who have worked on ROMs or mods for those old games. But we see it with Nintendo all the time, for example. There's that Melee mod that allows you to have online play in an emulation. Nintendo DMCA'd that. They do it all the time with even fan-made emulation games based on older Pokemon. Well, we saw that with Pokemon Uranium. Like, Nintendo takes a very hard and specific stance on protecting their legacy. And that's because Nintendo, unlike PlayStation, is willing to regurgitate its legacy over and over again and expect you to purchase it over and over again. Because they do backwards compatibility where you just constantly rebuy everything. We saw it with the Wii U. We saw it with the 3DS. We are seeing it with the Switch. They just are like, yeah, here are our old games, but buy them again. And sometimes they remaster them. Sometimes they do add some functionalities or features. Sometimes they make it more modern. But like the Mario collection does not really do that. It doesn't look very good. It doesn't control very good. It's not a very updated type of port, basically, is my point. So Nintendo's legacy and backwards compatibility is we'll just resell it to you. Sony's is, that's not who we are anymore. We don't care about that anymore. Here's our new shiny toy. Buy that instead. And we've kind of even seen them push PlayStation 4 that same way, where they're just like, PlayStation 4, old news. Don't care about PS4 anymore. PS5, baby. That's where we're at. All right. Which, I get it. Like, they want people to buy the PS5. They want to push PS5. That strategy has more or less worked fairly well for them, considering nobody can find one. Granted, Xbox has had similar problems, but that seems to be in combination with supply constraint in addition to demand. It's been a combination of both. Whereas maybe if things hadn't happened with COVID or Corona, however you want to refer to it, that maybe PS5s would be more readily available or not as difficult to find, but I doubt there would be a plethora of them sitting on store shelves, is my point. Whereas with the Xbox, you might see more of that. We've even seen with the sales numbers, for example. So if Sony doesn't care about their legacy, their past, their previous platforms, what does that mean for us when we invest in their ecosystems, when we invest in their platforms? Because we don't really have this unique problem, I think, to address with PS2 and PS1. If you want a PS2 or a PS1, you go buy a PS2 or a PS1. If something breaks in it, there's plenty of manufacturers that make replacement parts, more or less. And on top of that, you can buy discs fairly easily. And most discs will still function. You can fix them up. You can get most of the parts to work. And there's third-party memory cards and controllers and all these types of things. So Sony doesn't need to continue to provide an ecosystem for you to purchase those. If you really want to, you can go through third parties. However, that changes when they introduced the digital ecosystem. The digital ecosystem has made it now, and because of the lack of backwards compatibility, there are certain games that now will go into the dustbin of history. Like, that's it. It's done. Unless there's some codes lying out there somewhere, unless the devs or publishers can go dig up codes or make new codes for these games, which I doubt they can. I don't know what that looks like on Sony's backend, but to keep it simple, let's just say Sony's like, no new codes. You got the codes. These codes are old. Like, we don't even give a shit anymore. We're not giving you new codes. Whatever. I don't know what that looks like. I'd actually really like to talk to somebody who's familiar with the dev side to figure that out. But that means unless there's third-party keys somewhere, there are certain games that are just going to be gone. That's it. They're gone. We can't play them or purchase them anymore. And unless you already purchased or played them, that's it. And some people, they think that's a fine and fair thing because it's old, so who really cares? Or we're way past that now. Why would you want to go back and play something like that? To which I don't always agree, because we see that really good games or games that people didn't care about can become either important to them or become kind of cult classics much later after their releases. And we even see that with certain games, they just republish them, which is normally fine, but certain games can't be republished because they're in limbo. There's legal stuff with the copyright. They either went bankrupt or they got bought out, which is fairly common with games developers. Like, it happens all the time. This game developer closes, their IP gets bought out by so-and-so, or it's split, or it's lost to the nether. Like, we don't know. So it's not as simple as just like, even if there was this surgence of people who were like, we want this game, we want codes to this game, give us codes so we'll buy the codes from you directly and we'll put them in our PS3s and we'll play and we'll be happy. We don't even know if that's a possibility. And if they're willing to do this for PS3, obviously the indication is that they're willing to do it for PS4 as well. Obviously we're a long way off from that, because the PS3 came out in 2006 or 2005. So it's like 15, 16 years. So by the time the PS4 like clunks out into non-existence, it'll be like 10 years from now. So what happens there is my real question and my concern, because there have been times where there were certain games that maybe weren't accessible to me as a kid. I was a kid. I didn't have the financial means to be able to purchase games. I could only get what my parents would purchase for me. And so I've discovered games as an adult that I wouldn't have been able to play otherwise as a kid. And Now with the PS3, the Vita, and the PSP, that's just not an option for us anymore. And granted, it's probably not as big of a deal for the PSP and the Vita, but the PS3 was a home console and it sold well considering everything that happened throughout its life cycle. So now we have these millions of systems that are out there, or possibly people who will purchase them used or secondhand, and they will not be able to access a breadth of games that they could be interested in purchasing or playing and experiencing. And to me, that's just really kind of a sad state of affair. And I'm not sure. My assumption is that Sony looked at the books and was like, this costs us more than it really is worth. We're paying more than what we're making on it, which again, as a business, is their decision to do. But it leaves people with the impression that digital's not as safe as we thought it was, and which leads us to believe maybe it is sometimes better to go physical, but that's not always an option now, because so many games launch digital only. And we could see this come from Xbox as well, but I think it's less likely because I think Microsoft is more willing to hold on to legacy items, more willing to sell legacy type things and move on at a much slower pace. And given the current direction of Xbox, there's no indication really that they're willing to do that. And as far as I'm aware, the 360 store is still up and running, and they've migrated, not everything, not even close, but they've started to migrate some things to the Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S ecosystem so that it will continue to be accessible, which is what I would much more prefer. I'd even prefer Nintendo's, like, we'll resell you these games that you've already purchased again. I think that's better than it just going into the dustbin and just like being erased altogether. Because now you'll likely only be able to play these types of games if you've already purchased them, or if the tech ever comes along to emulate them, because PS3 emulation is the worst. It's so difficult. There's so many issues with it because of the architecture and the way it translates, especially to PCs. So it's not something as simple as, oh, we'll just get emulators up and running and boom, we'll just download ROMs and there you go. Plus, there's the legal gray area of everything. So all of this, and the whole point of the video more or less is to say that I wish we would care a bit more. Well, I guess companies would care a bit more about allowing people who at the time or in the future who have not had those experiences with those games, allow them to have those experiences with those games. So that's more or less it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I think I did a fairly decent job explaining my point of view, and I will see you all next time.